The city streets buzzed with the usual hum of people rushing about, taxis honking, and the distant sound of street vendors shouting for attention. Logan Carter had just wrapped up a major business deal that would likely add another zero to his already impressive bank account. Yet, as he walked along Michigan Avenue in downtown Chicago, lost in thought, something felt off. There was a heaviness in the air that he couldn't quite place. Maybe it was exhaustion from all the travel. Maybe it was the way everything had started to feel hollow lately. Even his victories didn't seem to carry the weight they used to. Lost in his thoughts, Logan barely noticed a small tug on the sleeve of his designer suit. He stopped abruptly, looking down to see a little girl, no older than 6, staring up at him with wide, curious eyes. She had soft brown hair that curled at the ends, her cheeks rosy from the chilly wind. She was holding a stuffed bunny, clutching it tightly against her chest, but it was her next words that made Logan freeze in place. "I know you," she said, her voice quiet but clear. "Your picture is in my mommy's wallet." Logan blinked, staring at the girl as if she had spoken in another language. He knelt down slowly to meet her at eye level, confusion swirling in his mind. "What did you just say?" The little girl, her eyes sparkling with a mix of innocence and certainty, repeated, "You're in my mommy's wallet. I saw your picture." Logan's mind raced. This had to be a mistake. Who was this little girl? And why on earth would his picture be in her mother's wallet? He took a deep breath, trying to keep his voice calm and steady. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lily," she answered with a shy smile. "Lily," he repeated, his voice softening. "And who is your mommy?" The little girl pointed down the street, toward a nearby coffee shop. "She's over there. She want to get me hot chocolate." Logan turned his head, scanning the cafe, but he couldn't make out anyone specific. His heart pounded in his chest, the unease inside him growing stronger with each passing second. Before he could ask Lily anything else, a woman's voice called out from behind him. "Lily, I told you not to wander off." Logan stood up and turned, and the moment his eyes met hers, the world seemed to stop. Standing a few feet away, holding 2 steaming cups, was Sarah Miller. She hadn't changed much since the last time he saw her. Years ago, in a life that now felt like it belonged to someone else. Her blonde hair, a little shorter now, framed her face perfectly, though there was a tension in her expression that hadn't been there before. And in her eyes, there was something deeper, something that sent a jolt of recognition through him. Sarah froze when she saw Logan, her eyes widening in shock. The color drained from her face, and for a moment, neither of them said a word. The bustling noise of the street around them seemed to fade into the background as they stood there, locked in a silent confrontation. Logan took a slow step toward her, his voice low. "Sarah?" She swallowed hard, her knuckles white as she gripped the coffee cups tighter. "Logan, what are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," he said, his gaze shifting from her to Lily, who was now hugging her stuffed bunny and looking between them with curious eyes. "Sarah, what's going on? Why does she have my picture?" Sarah glanced down at Lily, her expression softening for just a second before her guard went back up. "It's complicated," she muttered, looking away as if she wanted to disappear. Logan could feel the weight of something monumental hanging between them, something she wasn't ready to say. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Sarah, I need to know. Is she?" Before he could finish, Sarah shook her head sharply, her voice tense. "Not here, Logan. Not like this." Logan's heart hammered in his chest. The look in her eyes told him more than words ever could. But now wasn't the time to push. Not with Lily standing right there, staring up at both of them with wide, confused eyes. "Fine," he said, forcing calm into his voice. "But we're going to talk. You owe me that much." Sarah nodded, her expression a mixture of fear and something else, maybe regret. "Meet me tomorrow, at the park, 10 a.m. We can talk then." Logan hesitated, but then nodded. "All right, I'll be there." Without another word, Sarah took Lily's hand and quickly walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Logan stood there, his mind spinning. He had a million questions, none of which had answers yet. But one thing was clear. Whatever was happening, His life was about to change in a way he could never have imagined. And as he watched them walk away, he realized that a part of him, a part he thought he had buried long ago, was suddenly alive again, desperate for answers, desperate for the truth. Logan barely slept that night. His mind was a storm of questions and half-forgotten memories. The image of Lily's innocent face wouldn't leave him, and Sarah's shocked expression haunted him even more. Why had she disappeared from his life so suddenly all those years ago? And why did Lily, this sweet little girl, have his picture in her mother's wallet? By morning, Logan was already wide awake, pacing his penthouse apartment. From the windows, the skyline of Chicago stretched out, but the view that usually brought him peace now felt suffocating. He had never been a man to shy away from problems, but this felt different, personal, messy. He had thought about calling Sarah the night before, demanding answers right then and there, but something had stopped him. Maybe it was the way she looked at him. Maybe it was the fear that whatever answers she had might shatter the delicate control he had over his life. But now, he was done waiting. By the time 10 a.m. rolled around, Logan was already at the park, standing under a tree and scanning the area for any sign of Sarah. He didn't know what he expected. For her to show up casually as if nothing was wrong? Or maybe for her to run the other way the moment she saw him. He tried to stay calm, but his hands were restless, betraying his unease. Finally, he saw her. Sarah approached slowly, walking down the park path, Lily skipping beside her. His heart clenched. How could he have missed this? The resemblance between him and Lily was undeniable. The same dark hair, the same blue eyes. He hadn't wanted to believe it yesterday, but now it was impossible to deny. Lily was his daughter. Sarah stopped a few feet away, her face tight with tension. She held onto Lily's hand, as if drawing strength from her daughter's presence. "I thought you weren't going to come," Logan said, his voice quieter than he intended. "I didn't have much of a choice," Sarah replied, her eyes guarded. "You deserve an explanation." Logan's jaw tightened, the flood of emotions inside him hard to control. "Damn right I do. Sarah, why didn't you tell me? Why did you disappear? You didn't give me a chance." Sarah looked down at Lily, who was now distracted by a nearby playground. "Lily, honey, why don't you go play for a little while?" Lily hesitated, looking back and forth between them, but Sarah smiled softly. "Go on, sweetie. I'll be right here." With a shy nod, Lily skipped off toward the playground, her laughter soon filling the air. The moment she was out of earshot, the tension between Logan and Sarah snapped back into place. "Start talking," Logan said, his voice harder now. "Is she mine? Is Lily my daughter?" Sarah's eyes glistened with tears, but she didn't look away. "Yes," she whispered. "Lily is your daughter, Logan." The words hit him like a punch to the gut. For a moment, everything around him blurred. His world tilted on its axis, and he struggled to find his footing. He had a daughter, a little girl who had his eyes and his smile, and he had missed her entire life up to this point. "Why didn't you tell me?" Logan's voice was thick with disbelief, his fists clenching by his sides. "I had a right to know. You kept her from me." Sarah's expression hardened. "You don't understand. Back then, it was complicated." "Complicated?" Logan took a step closer, his anger bubbling to the surface. "What could be so complicated that you wouldn't tell me I had a child?" "Everything, Logan." Sarah snapped, her voice rising. "You had just launched your company. You were consumed by it. We were already drifting apart, and I didn't think you wanted this life." Logan stared at her, the anger battling against the hurt. "You didn't even give me the chance to decide. You made that decision for me, Sarah." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she looked away, wiping them quickly before they could fall. "I thought I was doing what was best for her, for both of us. You were on your way to becoming one of the most powerful men in the world. You weren't ready for a family." Logan shook his head, disbelief etched on his face. "You don't get to decide what I was ready for. You should have told me, Sarah. I would have been there. I would have stepped up." Sarah's shoulders slumped, the fight in her fading. "Maybe," she whispered, "but you weren't there, and I was scared. I didn't know what to do." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid filling the space between them. Logan felt like he was suffocating under the burden of lost time, of memories he would never have with his daughter. He had missed her first steps, her first words, every birthday, every scraped knee. And now, she didn't even know him. "I want to know her," Logan finally said, his voice hoarse. "I deserve to know my daughter, Sarah." Sarah looked up at him, her eyes filled with pain. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "What do you mean, not a good idea?" Logan's voice rose again. "I'm her father." "She doesn't know that, Logan," Sarah shot back. "All she knows is that you're some man she saw in my wallet. She doesn't know who you are. She doesn't know what this means." Logan felt a sharp pang in his chest, the reality of the situation hitting him harder than he expected. He wanted to walk over to Lily and scoop her up in his arms, to tell her everything. But she was just a little girl. He was a stranger to her. "She's going to know," Logan said firmly. "I don't care how long it takes, but she's going to know. I'm not walking away from this." Sarah sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Logan, I just need time. Lily's my whole world. I've protected her from everything, and now you're back, and I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to let you in." Logan's heart ached at her words, but he wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not after everything he'd just learned. "You're not alone in this anymore, Sarah. We'll figure it out. Together." Sarah looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for something. Finally, she nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "All right, we'll figure it out. But go slow, Logan. For her sake." Logan glanced over at the playground, where Lily was laughing, swinging high on the swings, her giggles filling the air. His heart swelled with a mixture of pride and regret. He had missed so much already, but this time, he wouldn't miss another moment. The next few days felt like an eternity for Logan. He had thought of nothing else but his daughter. Lily, his daughter. Every second that passed without him knowing her felt like wasted time, a missed opportunity to make up for the years he had lost. But he had to be patient. Sarah had asked for time, and if he pushed too hard, he might lose his chance to be a part of Lily's life. So, he waited. When Sarah finally called him, her voice was quiet but resolute. "We should talk. Just the two of us." Logan agreed without hesitation. They arranged to meet at a small cafe away from the bustling downtown streets, a place where they could speak without distractions. He arrived early, nerves twisting in his gut as he sat at a corner table, staring at the door. When Sarah walked in, Logan's chest tightened. She looked tired, worn down by the weight of everything. Her once carefree spirit seemed buried under years of worry and responsibility. He couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. Maybe if he'd known earlier, if he had been there, she wouldn't have had to carry all of this alone. She approached the table cautiously, sitting down across from him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with unresolved tension, years of silence stretching like a chasm. Finally, Sarah broke the quiet. "I know this isn't easy for you. It's not easy for me either." Logan nodded, his voice low. "I just want to understand, Sarah. I need to know why you didn't tell me." Sarah sighed, staring down at her hands. "I didn't think you'd want this life. Back then, you were so focused on your career. You were traveling all the time, working late nights. You were building something huge, and I didn't want to be the one to hold you back." Logan frowned, leaning forward. "You think a family would have held me back?" "I don't know," Sarah exclaimed, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "I was scared, Logan. I didn't know how you'd react. We were already drifting apart, and then when I found out I was pregnant, everything just felt too overwhelming." Logan's chest tightened with guilt. He remembered those days, how distant he'd been, how work had consumed every part of his life. But still, the thought that she had kept something so monumental from him cut deep. "You didn't even give me a chance to prove you wrong," Logan said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "I would have been there, Sarah. For you. For her." Sarah's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but she shook her head. "You say that now, but back then, you were different. We were different. I made the choice I thought was best for Lily." Logan clenched his fists under the table, the weight of her words settling over him. "But it wasn't your choice to make alone. She flinched at the sharpness of his tone, and Logan immediately regretted it. He took a deep breath, trying to keep calm. This wasn't about blaming Sarah anymore. It was about finding a way forward for Lily. "I'm not that man anymore," Logan said softly, his gaze steady on hers. "I'm here now, and I want to be in her life. You owe me that." Sarah wiped at her eyes, nodding. I know you do, Logan. And you're right. Lily deserves to know her father." Logan's heart skipped a beat at her words. This was what he had been waiting for, but the enormity of it suddenly hit him. He was going to be a father, not just in name, but in action. He would have to build a relationship with this little girl, piece by piece. "But," Sarah hesitated, biting her lip, "we have to take this slow. Lily's only 6. She's still so young, and she doesn't understand what's happening. I need you to be careful with her, Logan. She's my whole world." Logan nodded, his throat tight. "I'll do whatever it takes. I just want a chance." Sarah looked at him for a long moment, as if weighing her trust, before finally nodding. "Okay, we can start with something simple. She doesn't need to know everything right away. Just meet her. Spend time with her. Let her get to know you." Relief washed over Logan like a tidal wave, and he let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Thank you, Sarah. I won't let her down." They sat in silence for a moment, the tension between them softening but not completely gone. There were still so many things left unsaid, so many wounds that hadn't fully healed. But this was a start. Sarah shifted in her seat, glancing down at her phone. "There's a fair at the park tomorrow. I was planning on taking Lily. Maybe you could meet us there?" Logan's chest tightened at the thought of seeing Lily again, this time with the chance to get to know her. "Yeah, I'd like that." Sarah nodded, standing up slowly. "All right, tomorrow then." As she turned to leave, Logan called out to her. "Sarah, wait." She paused, turning back to face him. "I'm sorry," Logan said, his voice thick with emotion. "For everything. I should have been there." Sarah's expression softened, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he saw a glimmer of the woman he had fallen in love with all those years ago. "We can't change the past, Logan, but we can try to do better now." With that, she left the cafe, leaving Logan sitting alone at the table. His mind was spinning, his heart pounding in his chest. Tomorrow, he would see Lily again. But this time, it wouldn't just be a chance encounter on the street. Tomorrow, he would begin the hardest journey of his life, learning how to be a father to the little girl who had already captured his heart. The day was warm and bright, the kind of early autumn afternoon where the leaves were just starting to turn, filling the park with bursts of red, orange, and gold. Logan stood at the edge of the park, his heart pounding as he watched families laughing, children running from booth to booth, and the faint music of the fairground carousel spinning in the distance. But his focus was on one thing, one person, Lily. Somewhere in the crowd, she was there, along with Sarah. The thought of seeing his daughter again, knowing who she truly was, made his hands tremble. He hadn't felt nervous like this in years. Not in boardrooms, not negotiating billion-dollar deals. But this was something entirely different. This was his chance to be a father, and he couldn't afford to mess it up. A text buzzed on his phone, breaking him out of his thoughts. "We're near the popcorn stand." Logan's breath caught. It was time. He slipped his phone back into his pocket and made his way through the fair, weaving between the crowds and brightly colored booths. His eyes scanned the area, and then he saw them. Sarah was standing by the popcorn stand, watching Lily as she clutched a balloon in one hand and pointed excitedly at a nearby game booth. Logan's heart squeezed at the sight of her. She looked so carefree, so full of life. He'd missed so much of that. Sarah caught sight of him and gave a small nod, a silent signal for him to come over. Logan's legs felt like they were made of lead, but he forced himself to move, closing the distance between them. "Logan," Sarah said softly, offering him a cautious smile. "You made it." "Yeah," Logan replied, his voice a little rougher than he intended. "I wouldn't miss it." Before either of them could say more, Lily turned around, her balloon bouncing as she skipped toward her mother. She looked up at Logan with wide, curious eyes. "Hi," she said brightly, her smile as innocent as ever. "You're that man from before." Logan swallowed hard, kneeling down to her level. He wasn't sure what to say or how to start. He wasn't just some stranger anymore. He was her father, but she didn't know that. Not yet. "Hey, Lily," he said gently. "It's good to see you again." Lily tilted her head, studying him with the kind of seriousness only children seem to possess. "Mommy said you were going to come today. Are you going to play games with us?" Logan glanced up at Sarah, who nodded subtly, encouraging him to go along with it. "Yeah, I'd love to play some games," Logan said, offering a small smile. "What do you want to play first?" Lily's eyes lit up, and she pointed to a booth nearby where children were tossing rings over bottles, trying to win stuffed animals. "That one." Logan stood up, reaching into his pocket for some tickets. "All right, let's do it." The three of them made their way over to the booth, Lily's excitement contagious as she ran ahead, her balloon trailing behind her. Sarah walked beside Logan, her expression softer than he'd seen it in a long time. For a brief moment, it almost felt like they were a family, normal, carefree. But underneath the surface, Logan knew things were far more complicated than that. At the booth, Lily grabbed a handful of rings and stood on her tiptoes, trying to toss them over the bottles. The first one missed, bouncing off the edge of the glass. Then another missed, and another. Logan watched as Lily's face scrunched up in concentration, her tiny tongue poking out of the corner of her mouth. On her fourth try, the ring landed perfectly over one of the bottles. Lily let out a squeal of delight, jumping up and down. "I did it! I did it!" Logan laughed, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. "That was amazing, Lily. You're a pro." Lily beamed, holding up the stuffed bunny she had won. A new companion for the one she already had. She ran over to Logan, showing him her prize. "Look, isn't it cute?" "It's perfect," Logan said, kneeling down again to be at her level. "You're really good at this." Lily giggled, and for a moment, everything felt right. The fear and uncertainty that had been weighing on Logan's chest eased, replaced by a sense of hope. Maybe this wouldn't be so impossible after all. As they moved to another game booth, Logan and Sarah exchanged a few glances, but neither spoke. There was an unspoken understanding between them. This wasn't about them, not right now. This was about Lily, about giving her the happiness and stability she deserved. They spent the next hour wandering the fair, playing games, eating popcorn, and listening to Lily's nonstop chatter about her favorite things: school, her friends, the cartoons she loved to watch. Logan listened intently, soaking in every word. He couldn't believe how much he had missed, how much of her world he didn't know. But he was determined to make up for it. After a while, they found themselves sitting on a bench, watching as Lily ran off to look at a nearby face-painting booth. The sun was starting to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the park. "She's amazing," Logan said softly, watching Lily with a smile that felt more genuine than anything he had felt in years. "She is," Sarah agreed, her voice just as soft. "I didn't mean to keep her from you, Logan. I thought I was doing the right thing." Logan's chest tightened at her words. He looked over at Sarah, his expression serious. "I know, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Sarah nodded, the tension between them easing just a little more. "I believe you. I need to know you're ready for this." For her. "She's been my whole world for 6 years, Logan. I can't let anything hurt her." "I won't," Logan promised, his voice steady. "I'll be here. For both of you." Sarah didn't say anything more, but Logan could see the doubt in her eyes starting to fade, replaced by something that felt like trust. It wasn't fully there yet, but it was a start. As they sat in silence, watching Lily get her face painted, Logan felt a sense of peace settle over him. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about work or his business or the endless meetings that filled his calendar. He was thinking about his daughter, his family, the life he wanted to build with them. And in that moment, he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to let anything or anyone stand in the way of that. Over the next few weeks, Logan tried his best to step into Lily's life, though it wasn't as easy as he had hoped. There was no guidebook for becoming a father overnight, no blueprint for making up for lost time. He showed up at the park, the library, and sometimes even at the school pickup line when Sarah was tied up at work. Little by little, he was trying to be present, but every moment felt like walking on a tightrope. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. Lily, for her part, was warm and open. She accepted Logan's presence with the unfiltered innocence that only a child could have. She didn't question why he was there. She didn't ask why he had just appeared in her life out of nowhere. To her, Logan was simply a new friend. Someone who brought her ice cream, played games with her, and listened as she talked about her world of school and stuffed animals. But Logan could feel the wall that was slowly building between him and Sarah. The initial warmth between them after the fair had cooled, and Sarah seemed more distant with each passing day. She was always polite, always cordial, but there was something behind her eyes, something guarded. Logan could see it every time he dropped Lily off or picked her up, the hesitation in Sarah's voice, the way she would linger just a little too long on the threshold of goodbye, as if she was deciding whether to say something or not. One evening, after dropping Lily off at Sarah's apartment, Logan decided to confront her. He could sense that something was wrong, and he wasn't about to let it fester any longer. As Lily ran inside with her new drawing pad that Logan had bought her, Sarah turned to follow her, but Logan caught her arm gently. "Sarah, wait," he said, his voice low but firm. "We need to talk." Sarah's expression tensed, and she glanced toward the door, making sure Lily was out of earshot. She sighed and turned back to Logan, crossing her arms defensively. "About what?" "About us. About this arrangement." Logan took a step closer, his voice softening. "You've been distant lately. I can feel it. What's going on?" Sarah rubbed her arms, clearly uncomfortable. "Logan, I'm trying to let you in, but it's hard, okay? I've been doing this alone for 6 years, and now, suddenly, you're here, and everything is changing. I don't know how to handle that." Logan nodded, understanding her frustration, but the ache in his chest was undeniable. "I get that it's hard, Sarah, but I need you to trust me. I'm not going to disappear. I'm not going to hurt you or Lily. I need you to meet me halfway." Sarah shook her head, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You say that, Logan, but it's not that simple. You don't understand what it's like to have your entire world revolve around one person for so long, only to have everything flipped upside down." Logan's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "And whose fault is that, Sarah? You made the decision to keep her from me. You decided that I didn't deserve to know her, and now you're punishing me for trying to make things right." Sarah flinched, taking a step back as if his words had physically hurt her. "That's not fair," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You don't know what it was like back then. You don't know what I went through." "Then tell me," Logan urged, his voice thick with emotion. "Stop shutting me out and tell me. I want to understand, Sarah. I want to know why you didn't come to me, why you didn't let me be a part of her life." For a long moment, Sarah said nothing. She stood there, her arms wrapped tightly around herself as if trying to hold herself together. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was scared," she admitted, her eyes dropping to the ground. "I was scared that if I told you you'd leave, that you wouldn't want her. Or me." Logan's heart clenched painfully at her confession. He stepped closer, his voice gentle now. "Sarah, I wouldn't have left. I would have been there. I didn't know back then, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." She looked up at him then, her eyes searching his face for any hint of doubt, but Logan's expression was unwavering. He meant every word. He wasn't going to walk away from Lily, no matter how difficult things got between him and Sarah. "I don't know how to do this," Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. "I've been Lily's everything for so long, and now I'm terrified that you're going to take her away from me." Logan's heart dropped at her words. He hadn't considered that angle, the fear that Sarah must have been holding onto this entire time. "Sarah, I would never take her away from you," he said softly. "You're her mother. No one can replace you. I just want to be in her life. I want to be her dad." Tears finally spilled down Sarah's cheeks, and she quickly wiped them away, embarrassed. "I don't know how to share her, Logan. I don't know how to let someone else in." Logan's chest tightened with empathy. He reached out and gently touched her arm, his voice soft and sincere. "We'll figure it out. Together. I'm not asking you to give up your role, Sarah. I'm just asking you to let me be a part of it. Sarah looked up at him, her eyes full of doubt and fear, but also something else, hope. She nodded slowly, her voice shaky but full of resolve. Okay, we'll try. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. Logan knew that rebuilding the trust between them would take time. There were years of hurt and misunderstanding between them that wouldn't disappear overnight. But now, for the first time, he felt like they were on the same page, both working toward the same goal, giving Lily the family she deserved. As Logan left that night, his heart felt lighter, but he knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. He still had so much to prove, both to Sarah and to himself. But now, he had something worth fighting for, and he wasn't going to stop until he earned his place in Lily's life. And, if there was still a chance, in Sarah's heart. For the first time in years, Logan felt hope stir in his chest. The weeks that followed were a delicate balancing act for Logan. He spent every moment he could with Lily, getting to know her and savoring the little pieces of her personality that shone through with every conversation. She was bright, funny, and endlessly curious. And every time she looked at him with those wide, innocent eyes, he felt the pang of what he had missed. But he also felt something else, a growing bond, a connection that wasn't built on the years lost, but on the time they were creating now. Still, Logan couldn't shake the tension that lingered between him and Sarah. No matter how many times they spoke, how many days passed, there was still a distance between them that neither of them seemed able to bridge. He could feel it in the way Sarah watched him when he was with Lily, as if waiting for him to make a mistake. She was protective, always hovering, and it was clear that as much as she wanted this to work, she was still afraid. One evening, as the fall air began to cool and the sun dipped lower in the sky, Logan invited Sarah and Lily to his apartment for dinner. He had never been much of a cook, but he ordered in pizza, Lily's favorite, and set the table himself. It wasn't fancy, but it was his way of trying to create a sense of normalcy, to show Sarah that he could be part of Lily's routine without disrupting their world. Lily ran ahead into the apartment, her excitement infectious as she jumped onto the couch, holding her stuffed bunny in one hand. "This place is huge," she exclaimed, her eyes wide as she looked around. Logan laughed softly, feeling a warmth in his chest as he watched her. "I guess it's a little bigger than your place, huh?" Sarah smiled politely, though her expression was guarded as she stood by the door, taking in the sleek, modern lines of the apartment. It was clear that his world was still foreign to her, a world of wealth and luxury that seemed miles away from the life she had built with Lily. Logan could sense the divide, and it made him uneasy. But tonight was about Lily. He wanted to show them both that this didn't have to be so hard. Dinner started off light, filled with Lily's chatter about her day at school and her plans for Halloween. Logan listened intently, soaking in every word, while Sarah sat across from him, watching quietly. But as the evening went on, the conversation between him and Sarah felt stilted, each word weighed down by the unspoken tension between them. Finally, after Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from all the excitement, Logan and Sarah were left alone. The silence stretched between them, heavy and uncomfortable. "You're really good with her," Sarah said quietly, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. Logan looked up, surprised by the compliment. "Thanks. I'm trying." Sarah nodded, her gaze drifting to Lily, who was curled up peacefully under a blanket. "She's taken to you faster than I thought she would," she admitted. "I didn't expect that." Logan swallowed, sensing there was more behind her words. "What about you?" he asked, his voice gentle. "How are you handling all of this?" Sarah sighed, leaning back in her chair, her arms crossed over her chest. "I'm trying to, but it's hard, Logan. Every time I look at you, I'm reminded of everything we lost." Logan's chest tightened. He had expected this conversation to happen eventually, but hearing it still hit him like a punch to the gut. "I know I hurt you, Sarah," he said softly. "I can't change that, but I want to make things right. I want to be here, for her and for you." Sarah shook her head, her voice trembling as she spoke. "You can't just erase the past, Logan. You can't just show up and expect everything to go back to the way it was." "I'm not asking for that," Logan replied, his voice earnest. I know we can't go back, but we can move forward. We can try to build something new. Sarah's eyes filled with unshed tears, and she looked away, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know how to trust you again. The raw honesty of her words cut through Logan like a blade. He had known that trust would be hard to rebuild, but hearing it out loud, seeing the pain in her eyes, made it all the more real. I know I don't deserve your trust, Sarah, Logan said quietly. Not after everything, but I'm asking you to give me a chance. Not just for Lily's sake, but for us. I want to be part of her life, and yours. I've missed so much already. I don't want to miss anything else. Sarah wiped at her eyes, struggling to hold back her tears. It's not just about you, Logan. I've been doing this alone for so long. I don't know how to let someone else in. I don't know how to share her with you. Logan's heart ached at her words. He had never truly understood how much Sarah had carried on her own, how much she had sacrificed, not just for Lily, but for herself. He reached across the table, gently placing his hand over hers. I'm not here to take her from you, Logan said softly. I'm here to help, to share this with you. You don't have to do this alone anymore. For the first time, Sarah didn't pull away. She didn't argue or shut him out. She just sat there, her hand resting in his, her tears silently falling as the weight of everything seemed to finally break through. Logan squeezed her hand gently, offering her the only thing he could in that moment, his promise. I'm here, Sarah, he whispered, for both of you. They sat in silence for a long time after that, the only sound in the room the soft ticking of the clock on the wall and the gentle rise and fall of Lily's breathing. It wasn't a perfect resolution. There were still so many things left unsaid, so many wounds that hadn't fully healed. But for the first time, Logan felt a shift, a real chance at something better. And as the evening came to an end, Sarah stood, glancing over at Lily with a soft smile. We should get going, she said, her voice still shaky but calmer now. It's late. Logan nodded, standing to help her gather Lily's things. As he handed Sarah Lily's blanket, he hesitated, his voice soft. Thank you for tonight. It meant a lot to me. Sarah looked at him for a long moment, and then, for the first time in what felt like forever, she gave him a small, genuine smile. It meant a lot to me too. As they left that night, Logan stood in the doorway, watching them disappear into the night. His heart felt lighter, fuller. The road ahead was still uncertain, and he knew there would be challenges. But for the first time in a long time, he felt like they were moving forward, not just for Lily's sake, but for theirs. And as he closed the door behind him, he couldn't help but smile. He wasn't alone anymore. They weren't alone anymore. If you enjoyed this heartwarming story about overcoming challenges and family love, don't forget to like the video, comment on what touched you the most, and subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned for our next exciting story.